My name's Michael, and I guess you could say I'm just your average guy. Nothing special, really. I've always believed in hard work, honesty, and loyalty, especially when it comes to relationships. For 5 years, I thought I had it all with my wife, Emily. We had built a life together, a future I thought was solid. But life has a funny way of pulling the rug out from under you when you least expect it. One overheard conversation, a few careless words, and everything I thought I knew was gone. Now, I'm standing here, picking up the pieces of a life that was never what I thought it was. But don't get me wrong, I'm not the kind of guy to just sit back and let things fall apart. I'm not just here to tell you a sob story. This is about how I got my life back, and how I made sure Emily would regret the day she ever crossed me. It was just another ordinary evening. Nothing special about it. I got off work early, thinking I'd surprise Emily. I stopped at the store, picked up her favorite wine, and was already imagining the smile on her face when I walked in. That's what I was expecting. Her smile, her kiss, the usual, "How was your day?" Instead, what I got was a conversation I was never meant to hear. I stepped inside quietly, not wanting to make a big entrance. As I put the wine on the kitchen counter, I heard Emily's voice from the living room. She was on the phone, laughing, talking casually. At first, I didn't think anything of it. She didn't know I was home, so she was probably just catching up with a friend. I was about to walk in and greet her when her words stopped me in my tracks. "I don't know, Jessica. Maybe I'll just do it once. For fun, you know? He'll never find out." My heart pounded. I froze behind the wall, straining to hear more. Do what once? I thought, but I knew. Deep down, I already knew. Jessica, her best friend, was on the other end, telling her it wasn't a good idea. But Emily brushed it off like it was no big deal, like this was just some casual decision. A one-time thing, she called it, out of curiosity, like I wouldn't notice, like it wouldn't tear my world apart. She laughed again and said, "He's so trusting. I love him, but it's just a game. He'll never find out. I just want to see what it's like." It was like being hit by a freight train. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with everything, was planning to cheat on me. Not because I'd done something wrong or because we had problems, but because she was curious. It was a game to her. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I stood there, hidden behind the wall, hearing every word of her betrayal. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen behind that wall, listening to Emily's carefree laughter. Time didn't seem to exist in that moment. Everything I thought I knew about her, about us, was slipping away with every word she said. It felt like someone had their hands around my throat, squeezing tighter and tighter. I wasn't ready for this. Hell, no one ever is. You don't prepare for something like this. I wasn't even sure what to do next. Burst into the room, screaming, or walk out quietly, pretending I never heard a damn thing. But the more I listened, the angrier I got. My hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms, and I could feel the heat rising in my chest. This wasn't some random woman talking on the phone. This was my wife, the woman I'd stood in front of at the altar, promising forever. And now, she was casually plotting how she'd betray me. Before I knew it, I was in the room. I don't even remember my feet moving. 1 second, I was hiding behind the wall. The next, I was standing right there in front of her, looking at her in complete disbelief. Emily's eyes went wide. Her face drained of color, like she had just seen a ghost. I guess in some way she had, because I wasn't the same man she kissed goodbye that morning. "Michael," she stammered, her voice shaky. The phone was still in her hand, but Jessica's voice was gone. Emily must have hung up without even realizing it. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, looking at her like she was a stranger in my own house. How do you even begin to talk to someone after hearing something like that? I ripped off my wedding ring, the metal digging into my skin as I pulled it free. The sight of it made me sick. That ring symbolized trust, loyalty, things that clearly didn't matter to her anymore. I threw it on the table in front of her, The sound of metal hitting was loud in the silence between us. "What the hell, Emily?" My voice was quieter than I expected, but it wasn't calm. Not by a long shot. She opened her mouth to say something, to explain, but what could she possibly say? That it was just a joke? That I was overreacting? The truth was out there, plain as day. She had no excuses left, none that I would accept anyway. Michael, I didn't mean," she started, but I cut her off before she could even finish. "You didn't mean what?" "I heard everything, Emily. Everything." My voice cracked a bit, more from the shock than the anger, though both were pretty damn strong at that point. "You were going to cheat on me. And for what? Fun? Curiosity?" I was shaking now, not from fear but from rage. I wanted answers. I wanted her to explain, even though I knew no explanation would make this hurt less. She looked at me, eyes filling with tears. But I didn't care. Not this time. Her tears didn't mean a damn thing to me right now. The damage was already done. Emily sat there, staring at me with wide, terrified eyes like she didn't know what to say. And honestly, what could she say that would fix this? I wasn't interested in her apologies, her excuses. I wasn't interested in anything except the truth, no matter how painful it was. "Michael, please." "I didn't mean for this to happen," she finally said, her voice small and trembling. She looked at me like she expected me to feel sorry for her, like she was a victim in this. "Didn't mean for what to happen?" I snapped, throwing my hands up in frustration. "You didn't mean for me to hear? Or you didn't mean to cheat?" My words were harsh, but I wasn't in the mood to sugarcoat anything. She had no right to play the victim here. It was stupid," she said, her eyes darting away, unable to look at me directly. I didn't actually do anything, Michael. I was just talking. It was just talk. Just talk." I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You were planning to cheat on me, Emily. That's not just talk. You were already halfway there." I could feel my blood boiling under my skin, my heart pounding in my ears. How could she even try to downplay this? Like it was some casual conversation that didn't mean anything, but it meant everything to me. She stood up from the couch, taking a step toward me, her hands trembling. "Michael, I love you. I do. I wasn't going to let it happen." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "Oh, really? That's what you're going with. You weren't actually going to do it. Just, what? Flirt with the idea of screwing someone else, and then come home to me like nothing ever happened." Her lip quivered, and she wiped away a tear that had slipped down her cheek. "It was a mistake, okay? I got caught up. I wasn't thinking." "You weren't thinking?" I stepped closer to her, my voice rising. "You were planning to betray me, and you expect me to believe you weren't thinking? You don't just accidentally decide to cheat on your husband, Emily." She reached for me, but I jerked back, not wanting her to touch me. I couldn't stand to even look at her right now, let alone let her act like she could fix this with a hug or some half-assed apology. She had already done the damage, and no amount of empty words could take that back. "I don't even know who you are right now," I muttered, shaking my head. "How could you do this to us?" To me, the room felt heavy with tension, like the air itself was too thick to breathe. Emily stood there, silent, her eyes darting from me to the floor and back again. It was like she wanted to say something, to offer some explanation, but she couldn't find the words. I didn't care. I didn't need any more excuses from her. I needed her gone. Without another word, I walked past her, heading straight for the front door. My hands shook as I grabbed the doorknob and yanked it open. "Get out," I said, my voice cold and steady, despite the storm of emotions inside me. Emily's eyes went wide. "Wait, Michael, no, please. Don't. Get out," I repeated, my voice louder this time, my grip tightening on the door. I couldn't look at her, couldn't stand to see her face right now. The same face I used to kiss every morning before work. The same face I thought I knew inside and out. Now, All I saw was someone I didn't recognize. She stood frozen in place, like she couldn't believe what was happening. Michael, please, let me explain. Just listen to me. We can fix this. We can... There's nothing to fix. I cut her off, turning around to face her. The hurt in my chest was so overwhelming, I could barely keep my voice steady. You already broke it. You broke us. I could see the panic rising in her eyes. She was starting to realize that this wasn't something she could just apologize for and move past. It wasn't one of those stupid little arguments where we'd kiss and make up later. No, this was something different, something final. Please, she begged, stepping closer, her hands shaking as she reached out to me. Michael, I love you. I made a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you. Stop, I snapped, stepping away from her touch. I couldn't even stand the sight of her right now, let alone the idea of her touching me. You don't love me, Emily. You wouldn't have done this if you did. I could see the tears streaming down her face now, but they didn't move me. Not this time. She had already played her hand, and I wasn't falling for it. Go stay with Jessica or whoever else you want. But you're not staying here tonight. I can't even look at you. Her shoulders slumped, and she looked down at the floor, defeated. She knew there was no point in arguing. Not now. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand and slowly walked to the door, pausing for a moment as if she thought I might change my mind. But I didn't. I stood there, arms crossed, waiting for her to leave, and then she was gone. I slammed the door shut behind her, the sound echoing through the empty house. I stood there in the silence, staring at the door, trying to process what had just happened. But it didn't feel real. None of this felt real. It felt like my whole world had just been turned upside down in the blink of an eye. After slamming the door, I just stood there, staring at it, like if I looked hard enough, I'd wake up from this nightmare. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. Too real. The silence in the house was deafening. It wasn't the comforting quiet I used to feel when I'd get home after a long day, knowing Emily would be there soon, that we'd spend the evening together. No! This silence was different. It was the kind of silence that comes after everything falls apart. I leaned back against the wall, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor. My hands were shaking, and I could still feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I'd just thrown my wife out of the house. I mean, what the hell just happened? I buried my face in my hands, trying to catch my breath. My mind was racing, replaying every moment of that conversation. The way she looked at me, the way she tried to downplay what she was planning, like I was some fool who'd just let it slide because she hadn't actually done it yet. But it didn't matter if she hadn't gone through with it. The betrayal was already there. She was willing to throw away everything we had, everything I believed in, for what? Curiosity? A thrill? I sat there for what felt like hours, my head spinning, trying to make sense of it all. The house was so quiet, too quiet. It hit me then. This was it. My marriage, my life, the future I thought we were building together. It was all gone. How had I not seen it coming? How could I have been so blind? I thought about everything we'd been through, our wedding, the trips we'd taken, the nights spent talking about our dreams, our future. I thought about how just this morning, I kissed her goodbye before work like it was any other day. How could everything change in a single moment? One conversation, and everything I thought I knew was gone. And then came the anger. It burned in my chest, spreading like wildfire. How dare she? How dare she take everything we had and toss it aside like it was nothing? After everything we built together, everything I'd given to this marriage, I trusted her. I loved her, and she threw it all away. I stood up, my hands still shaking, my heart pounding. I couldn't stay in this house. Not tonight. Not after everything that had just happened. Every corner, every piece of furniture, every damn thing in this house was a reminder of her, of us, of what I thought we had. I grabbed my keys from the counter, not even sure where I was going, but knowing I had to get out. I couldn't sit in that house and drown in all the memories. Not tonight. Not when it felt like I was suffocating. As I walked out the door and into the cool night air, I realized something. I wasn't going to let this slide. I wasn't going to be the guy who got cheated on and quietly walked away. No! If she wanted to break me, I was going to make sure she knew exactly what she'd lost. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I drove around for what felt like hours, aimlessly circling the same streets in the middle of the night, trying to calm down. But no matter how hard I tried, the anger kept building. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a smugness in her voice when she talked about it on the phone, like cheating on me was some casual experiment. She could try and then go back to her life without any consequences. Like I wouldn't find out. Like I didn't matter. By the time I pulled over into an empty parking lot, something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to just end this quietly. Ending our marriage wasn't enough. Emily had taken everything from me, my trust, my love, my entire life. She needed to feel that same pain. She needed to know what it felt like to lose everything. That's when the idea of revenge hit me. Cold, calculated, and clear. I wasn't just going to divorce her. I was going to ruin her. I was going to make her regret every second of her betrayal. And I knew exactly where to start. I grabbed my phone and scrolled to Jessica's number, Emily's best friend, the same Jessica who tried to warn her not to cheat on me. I knew Jessica had always had a soft spot for me. I could sense it over the years, though nothing had ever come of it. Now, though, I could use that to my advantage. When the hearing started, it was business as usual at first. The judge asked us both questions. When I hit call, Jessica picked up after a few rings, sounding surprised. It was late, after all. Michael? What's going on? Is everything okay? No, Jess. It's not. I need to talk to you about Emily. Her voice immediately dropped, concerned. Oh, God, what happened? Is she okay? I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm but letting enough hurt seep through to make it clear I was broken. I overheard her tonight. She was on the phone with you. She was talking about cheating on me. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, Michael, I'm so sorry. I tried to talk her out of it. I told her it was a mistake. Yeah, I said quietly. But she didn't listen. I could hear the guilt in Jessica's voice. She felt responsible for not being able to stop her friend. I could use that. Look, Jess, I know you're the only one who tried to reason with her, and, well, I've always appreciated that about you. You've always been good to me. Jessica hesitated, but I could hear the sympathy in her tone. You didn't deserve this, Michael. I don't know what she was thinking. I need someone to talk to, I said, leaning into my plan. Maybe we could meet up sometime, just to talk. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I could almost hear her smile through the phone. Of course, whenever you need. I'm here for you. That was the first step. The second step was going to be a little more public. I wasn't just going to divorce Emily and move on quietly. No, I wanted everyone to know what she'd done. I wanted her to be humiliated, to feel the weight of her choices in front of all our friends and family. She thought she could cheat without consequences. Well, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. And I had the perfect plan for that, too. The next morning, my mind was clear. The fog of betrayal had burned off, replaced with cold determination. I wasn't just going to end things. I was going to destroy Emily's life the way she had destroyed mine. I called my lawyer first thing. I wanted to make sure the divorce was airtight. No loopholes. No chances for her to take anything from me that she didn't deserve. But that wasn't enough. I wanted everyone to know what she'd done. Our friends, her family. They all needed to see the real Emily. After handling the legal stuff, I started putting my plan into motion. I reached out to some mutual friends, casually dropping that I'd be hosting a small get-together at the courthouse on the day of our divorce hearing. It'll just be a formality, I said to them, but I think it'd be good to have our close friends and family there. For support, I could tell by their voices they didn't think much of it. A quiet ending to a quiet marriage, they thought. No one had any idea what was coming. No one but me. Meanwhile, I stayed in close contact with Jessica. I played the grieving husband, the man who had been blindsided by the woman he loved. Jessica ate it up. She wanted to comfort me, to be there for me. It didn't take long for her to suggest that maybe, just maybe, there could be something between us once the dust settled. I knew she was treading lightly, but that's exactly what I wanted. I needed her on my side when the time came. Days passed like this, everything falling perfectly into place. Emily tried to reach out a few times, calling and texting, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not if I wanted to stay focused on what needed to be done. I wasn't going to let her wiggle out of this. She had made her bed, and now she was about to lie in it. On the morning of the court date, I dressed sharply, more prepared for a battle than a simple divorce hearing. When I got to the courthouse, our friends and family were already there. About a dozen people, all gathered, whispering to each other about what might happen. Emily showed up looking nervous, but she was trying to keep it together. She smiled at people, acting like this was just some unfortunate bump in the road. She had no idea what was coming next. When the hearing started, it was business as usual at first. The judge asked us both questions, went over the basics of the divorce settlement. Emily looked relieved, like this would be quick and painless. And then, when the judge asked if either of us had anything to say, I stood up. I could feel Emily's eyes on me, curious but not worried. Not yet. Your Honor, I said, turning to face the people in the courtroom. Our friends, our families, her parents. I just want to say that this divorce isn't happening because of some mutual decision or because we drifted apart. It's happening because my wife, Emily, betrayed me in the worst possible way. The room went silent. I could see Emily's face pale as she realized where this was going. She cheated on me, I continued, my voice steady. Not once, but multiple times. And not out of love or passion or even a mistake. She did it out of boredom, curiosity, like I was just some placeholder in her life, someone she could lie to while she explored her fun. Emily shot to her feet. Michael, stop. What are you doing? But I wasn't done. I overheard her planning it with her friend, laughing about how I'd never find out. She thought she could just play this game and get away with it, without any consequences. Well, today she gets to face those consequences. Her family looked like they'd been slapped. Her friends, too. The whispers started immediately, and I could see Emily's face crumbling, her entire world beginning to fall apart in front of everyone she knew. Michael, please, she pleaded, her voice cracking. But I didn't stop. Maybe this will be a lesson, I said, staring her down, that you can't lie, cheat, and manipulate without losing everything. I sat down, leaving Emily standing there broken, with the weight of everyone's eyes on her. The judge quickly wrapped up the proceedings, but the damage had already been done. By the time we left the courtroom, Emily's life was in shambles. She tried to talk to me outside, tried to explain, but I wasn't interested. It's too late, I told her coldly. You made your choice. She stood there, tears streaming down her face, as her parents and friends huddled around her, avoiding eye contact with me. They had heard the truth, and they couldn't unhear it. Emily was no longer the sweet, innocent wife they had thought she was. Now she was the cheater, the liar. And the best part? Jessica was right there with me, offering a shoulder to cry on, standing by my side while Emily's world collapsed. I didn't know if anything would happen between me and Jessica, but in that moment, it didn't matter. Emily had already lost everything that mattered to her, and that was exactly what I wanted. After that day in court, Emily's life began to unravel faster than I could have imagined. Her reputation, the one she worked so hard to build, was in ruins. Our friends didn't know how to look at her anymore. Some tried to stay neutral at first, but the more the story spread, the more people started to turn their backs on her. She'd be out somewhere, at a coffee shop or the grocery store, and she'd run into people we both knew. And the looks they gave her, it was like she was radioactive. The whispers followed her everywhere. She couldn't escape them. I didn't need to do anything else. I'd already done enough by exposing her in front of everyone. The rest just happened on its own. Her friends slowly stopped answering her calls. Her social circle shrank until it was just her, left alone with the mess she created. Even Jessica cut ties with her, and that was a real nail in the coffin. I guess she didn't want to be associated with someone who was publicly shamed like that. Emily tried to repair the damage, of course. She reached out to people, trying to explain, to spin her side of the story. But it didn't matter. People had already made up their minds. And her family, well, that was a different kind of pain for her. Her parents were devastated. I remember running into her dad a few weeks after the court hearing. He couldn't even look me in the eye. He muttered something about being sorry, about how he didn't know what had gone wrong with Emily. But I knew. Emily had done this to herself. She lost her job not long after. Not directly because of the cheating, of course, but because her focus was shot. She was distracted, missing deadlines, showing up late. The Emily who used to be sharp, on top of everything, was gone. She was unraveling, just like her life. Her boss let her go, and after that, she struggled to find work. No one wanted to hire someone whose personal life was so publicly messy. I thought I'd feel bad for her at some point. Like, maybe I'd regret what I did. But I didn't. Not one bit. She made her choices. She destroyed us. All I did was make sure she couldn't just walk away unscathed. And now, she was paying the price. As for me, well, I'll be honest. The anger didn't disappear overnight. It lingered, like a slow-burning fire. But as time passed, I started to feel lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I had gotten my revenge, and it was exactly what I needed. Emily had broken my heart, torn my world apart, but in the end, I wasn't the one who was left with nothing. I moved on, slowly at first, but I moved on. I reconnected with old friends, focused on my job, and started to rebuild my life. There were nights when I thought about Emily, wondered how she was handling everything, but those thoughts faded quickly. She was no longer my problem. Jessica and I, well, we never really became anything more than friends. She helped me through some tough times, but in the end, I needed to heal on my own. She understood that, and we stayed in touch, but nothing romantic ever came from it, and that was fine by me. I wasn't looking for another relationship, at least not right away. I'd hear things about Emily from time to time, how she was struggling to find work, how she had moved out of the apartment we used to share and was living with her parents. She tried dating again, but every relationship seemed to fall apart. I guess the kind of person who cheats out of boredom doesn't make for the best partner. In the end, I got what I wanted. Emily lost everything that mattered to her. Her friends, her reputation, her stability. And me? I got my life back. It wasn't perfect, and the scars were still there, but I was free. Free from the lies, the betrayal, and most of all, free from the woman who had torn my world apart. As for Emily, she was left with the memories of everything she destroyed with her own 2 hands.